Testing, testing. Okay, are we back now? I don't know what's going on. I open up the settings window and it works, but then when I closed it, it kind of disappeared again. So maybe we'll just leave that open for the time being. I have no idea what I did. Breaking things. Go figure. It's not me if I'm not breaking things right off the bat. Sorry. Oh, man. Anyway. First I just, I bumped the mic and I hit the mute button, but, man, I don't know. Anyway. As I meant to be saying, I really am fascinated by Gustav Klimt because of the span of his work, from very stylized and decorative to very just kind of traditionally rendered. And I like the way that even in the pieces where he stylizes it and he uses all this ornamentation, he also, even though just the parts of the flesh of the woman are very almost realistically rendered, but they're also distorted too. There's these uses of right angles. As I'm motioning on the picture, let me put it here so I can show you what I'm doing. The right angles, on her hand here. Things like that, her very almost elongated face, and she's very long and slim. Of course, there's pieces like The Kiss, which is, super famous, where it's got the very unnatural angle of the neck. So strange ways of distorting the human figure, even though that's the part that's rendered more cleanly. And also, it's interesting how much of his work was ultimately destroyed in World War II, just for where it was and buildings being destroyed in the war, that so much of his work was destroyed. And then there's stories of how his work was stolen after or during the war too. It's just very fascinating. And he was a weird guy. He kind of kept a lot to himself. He didn't like to be involved in a lot of social things and scenes and such. He was involved in this school of, not really school's not the right word, this organization of artists for a while, until he split off and kind of wanted to do his own thing. But just very, very interesting what he was known for. He probably wouldn't have done so well today in the arts, because he would be the kind of guy that never wanted to be on, social media or networking or anything. So it would be really hard to be ever seen or heard or spoken to. But just fascinating. And the 14 kids thing, man, granted, a different time, so to speak, but still, that's not, I don't know. And he died pretty young. He would have been, in his 50s when he passed. Is that right? Do you believe? His father worked with gold etchings, so I wonder, how much that carries over in the use of gold leaf in his own work ultimately. And as if I didn't pick a difficult, subject matter to start with for the morning, I also am going to be working with acrylic gouache. And this is my first time doing so. I've not had this before. Brand new medium to me. So yeah, let's just really make things hard on ourselves today, huh? So I'm just kind of getting out some of the colors that I know I want to use. I don't have any metallic gold to use, but we're just going to go with what we have. Another thing that's interesting about his pieces with the metallic leafing is, from one image to another, they can be so different in what they're picking up, where the darks are, where the lights are, and all the background stuff, how light or bright they are. It is truly very interesting. It makes it, what is it? The quality that it gives it is almost ethereal in that sense. but it's not the same ever twice. Our second morning. Klimt seems to have approaching Cubism and Art Nouveau Surrealism. He kind of previewed several schools. Yeah, he was definitely considered, like, this book that I'm looking at is actually an Art Nouveau book. So he was definitely considered a part of that school, for sure. Just very fascinating fellow. I really, this particular painting is really interesting to me in terms of the composition. Like, I think that there's some really beautiful things happening in the way that the lines guide your, like, the weight of it and where you're looking up to the figure, and there's the weight around her face. Then the dress goes up, but also creating those lines. Some of his pieces, he does figures in his ornamental style where they're like this globby shape, and the figure's in there, and then it's all the ornamentation and such around them, like the fashion of what they're wearing, which he was really involved in because his lady, I don't think they were married, was a design, like a, so to speak, a fashion designer, I guess. I think that's correct. So they'd kind of work together, I guess, on like what he's doing here and then what she would create herself. But it's interesting because he's considered to not have had that big of an impact on art at the time. Outside of for the most part, his work did not have this like lasting impact of influence where he like changed the way that things were done significantly. Like, I have cat hair stuck to my face. I'm sorry, I probably do. It's everywhere. Just how it goes around here. But what was I going to do with that? I don't know. I think I should have more coffee. Maybe that will help. Yeah, when you think of an artist like Singer Sargent and the way he did oil paintings, not too far from the time period that Gustav Klimt was also working, to this day, people still look at, like, try to emulate what he was doing, try to recreate it, and I guess I should get some around here. Sorry, there goes my train of thought right off the trails. He's kind of considered almost this like end-all be-all of painting with oil paints. Like, everybody wants, still to this day, wants to emulate the way that he worked and learn from the way that he worked. Whereas you didn't really see that happen with somebody like Klimt. Sargent with his minimalist strokes, absolutely. Like I said, he's absolutely still considered like the master to emulate, and a lot of people, you see a lot of folks doing master studies of Singer Sargent often. So this should be interesting. Yes, I'm using, just on a whim, I decided to use gouache. And I drew this on canvas, so hopefully that will be, we'll see how it goes. This is like a canvas sheet. I just have it taped down. It's primed with a little bit of a blue-gray. I'm just, at the moment, laying in a few spots where it'll be kind of the flat black, just to see some of my darkest shades. Then I'll start laying in some of the lighter ones. I think Sargent's superpower was understanding how far he could push it while trusting the human eye to interpret. Yeah, like, it's that real skill of what do I actually have to literally paint versus suggest, which not is an offshoot of Impressionism, but he also was very much his own thing outside of Impressionism. So it's quite fascinating. And one thing I've learned from like kind of reading about both Sargent and Klimt and the eras that they lived in, especially in high society, but I'm sure as, you know, reality is, this was throughout with all people, things were quite loose. Like, I guess you'd say in morality. It seemed like everybody was sleeping with everybody, and it was fine as long as there wasn't a big scandal about it, and you didn't bring a lot of attention to it, apparently. So, yeah, that's very, very interesting. If you've seen Klimt's piece, what is it called? The 3 stages of womanhood or something along those lines. I think we often see it cropped in. Not the entirety of the piece, but there's like a mother, it's a mother and a small child, and almost a baby, and they're embracing, and it's a very lovely little moment. And you often see that just cropped in. And this is the first time I really paid attention to that piece, was oddly enough when I went through a phase where I was trying out acupuncture in an effort to try to help manage my migraines and pains. And in the room where you'd sit with the needle stuck in you and just some random chair, there was the painting on the wall, like a stretched canvas bought from, some store, that was the mother and the baby having that moment. That's such a very sweet little moment, and I would stare at it and just kind of study it while I was just sitting there waiting for the time to pass. And when I went and looked it up, and I saw that was just this tiny little piece of it, but they completely cut out the older woman, perhaps grandmother figure, that is right standing behind them. It's like sort of an embrace, not quite. And how very interesting. It just changes the entire everything. It changes everything about the piece to have not included that element of it. So artwork out of context is always a bit of an interesting thing. So I'm doing some skin tones next. I love the softness of his skin tones and the way that he does, the way that he creates those. And the shadow is just this most bit of barely visible blue cast. It's too hot there, should be cooler. I'm making things kind of hard on myself by working this tiny, but also I don't want to get caught up in the details, because what I want to take from doing this is kind of studying the way that he juxtaposes the different approaches, the very ornamental from the rendered, and the way that he creates the compositions and kind of distorts the human figures in these very subtle ways. It's really fascinating to me, and I just adore it. And so you could spend, if I really truly wanted to recreate this in some accuracy on a larger piece, you could spend forever working on copying every little swirl and little checker mark and everything, but I don't want to get bogged down into that. I want to have a little bit of a focus on what I'm looking at, what I'm working with. I'm always fascinated by the way he does hands. They're so long and kind of definitely exaggerated in their length and angles, so angular. Apparently he was very famous for doing portraits specifically. People would go to him, but he could be very choosy in what he chose to do also. Did I see Klimt's most recent discovered? No. Tell. Do tell. I know they're often finding things because so much of his work was stolen or and being recovered. So much was destroyed, which is tragic, but it just is the way of the world. Tinier brush. Hit up news for Lady with a Fan. I will definitely check it out. Oh, I did read your Jurassic Park breakdown, and I really enjoyed it. It was really, really good and very thoughtful. For not Jurassic Park, Jurassic World movie. I especially enjoyed and agreed with the part where you talk about what you think could have been done differently to improve it. You can hit the nail on the head with that. Yeah, I will definitely look that painting up. Actually, I gotta write it down because I will forget if I don't write it down. Lady with Fan. I actually would have really liked to do a different piece of Klimt's for a study, but to do it live, gotta be a little careful with the YouTubes and the boobs. So I chose one that was a little easier to not have to worry about, but also worked out that I happen to have it in this book, so I could just look at it here. I don't have a color printer at home, so trying to get like a printout of it to look at would be pretty difficult. I'm warning not to challenge me to rewrite the Barbie movie. Now, I probably love what you would write for rewriting that. You're very insightful, and you see all the things, like all the problems with that movie, with the lack of like what is the motivation of these characters, doesn't make sense, the logic of it. Like, I didn't need to watch that movie more than once to like really struggle with the lack of logic of what was happening, and the lack of motivation, and then the lack of setup and payoff that mattered to anything. The ham-fisted make you care about these characters kind of stuff. I rewatched Prometheus again the other day and just got angry over and over again. Thank you for saying I see the problems. That's many a year of writing study. Oh, I believe it. And sometimes for somebody who's not as like involved in the writing, like you see it and you know something's not right, but sometimes you can't always verbalize it or actually understand it. Like you know that this doesn't work, but I can't tell you. Maybe I can't tell you why exactly. There's often those moments, I think, when you're just starting to learn, but there's also just there were so many people that did legitimately like that film. The second call it Jurassic World movie, did not, okay, first of all, I didn't want to watch it, but we did. And I was hating it until it got so absurd that I kind of started to enjoy it. The whole super absurd thing of the crazy amount of money. His is some of the highest spending, like most expensive artwork in auctions. And that's in the way that like hate those when they talk about art in the sense of, oh, it's worth this or that or the other thing in regard to these auctions, because those auctions mean nothing to the artists at all. That's not money that's going to artists. That's money that's passing between collector and from one collector to another. It doesn't matter to anybody who's actually an artist. It's a great way to move money or large amounts of money around. And then put something in a basement to never be seen by the public again. It drives me mad when I see all the BS and the director doesn't. But as you say, some movies just go off the chain. I love the John Wick movies because they're ridiculous, but the writing is spot on. Yeah. Well, I still feel like I'm very early in the process of doing this piece as far as a master's study. And like I said, I definitely made things a little bit more complicated for myself by deciding to go very small, because I didn't want to get sucked into the details too much, but there is just so much subtlety happening in the skin tones. And it's really beautiful. The way that the shadows are just this little bit of cast blue color. It's like white, blue, and peach, and there's the extent of all of the skin tones in the piece. And yeah, hey, why not try? So far, oh, sorry. That's having the mic in my face means I'm going to hit it with my brush. I am finding also the acrylic gouache handling very much just like regular acrylic thus far. The very little bit of reviews I could see on people using acrylic gouache online, so kind of trying to see what I was getting myself into before I started anything, mostly seem to be coming from people who have primarily used regular gouache and watercolor, and they've struggled with the things about it where it dries fast and isn't reworkable and such. But as somebody who has spent a lot of my life working with acrylic paint, I don't find that element of it to be such a challenge, such a difficult thing. It's something that I'm familiar with. I came in a bit late. Did you mention how you went about picking your palette? I just picked this, or that's something specific to Klimt. I gotta try the Zorn palette at some stage. Yeah, the Zorn palette is kind of an interesting thing to me in that it's kind of the way that I've, not specifically, but I've worked that way a lot, and I've kind of gotten away from working with that kind of a palette. And when I'm trying to do a realistic portrait, I've actually kind of gone back to, like, I take browns out of my palette almost altogether. And just, I'll just work with, like, saturated tones, my primaries and a few other colors, like I look at temperature and such, but, yeah, I don't really work with browns anymore. I just mix them on my palette. I mix the tones from either on the palette or on the canvas. But as far as my palette that I chose for this, it's kind of the same thing. I didn't put down any browns, but there's also not a ton of probably browns in this piece. I don't have any metallic yellow paint. So like for the skin, I'm using white. This color is just called a pastel yellow. It's sort of a very off-whitish light color. Yellow is Aureolin yellow. It's very much like your normal, we call it cadmium yellow. I haven't used the orange yet, but this is a coral red. It's a rosy, pinkish color. Call this saffron orange, but that's like your cadmium orange. Is there a reason to use long-handled oil brushes for gouache? All my brushes are short ratty. No particular reason. I could certainly use my water brushes as well. I guess I'm still kind of trying to figure out what is the best way to use these two. But yeah, I probably would be less at risk of hitting the microphone repeatedly if I were using my short-handled brushes. One thing with these colors is that because they have an acrylic binder to them, they won't, like, you risk the same kind of issues of the paint as with acrylic, in terms of it drying, in terms of it, you know, being more likely to damage your brushes than the water-based things. So that's kind of why I initially leaned towards doing this work, doing it with these brushes, just for the sense that it is essentially like working, like much more similar to working with acrylic. And just to like kind of keep my water brushes very neat at the moment and try to preserve them as best as I can. I don't know. I mean, rules about what you're supposed to do for this, that, or the other thing. Do what works for you, right? Ultimately. What else is there to it? So far, I'm not loving adding much water. Like I'm not generally putting a ton of water as I'm in the paint, because it has such a nice consistency right out of the tube, to be honest. Like it flows pretty nicely. It's not exactly fluid, but it was quite nice. It moves nicely on the canvas. Even with the bits of the peach color, like on the cheek and the lips, he uses it's very cool toned, the skin. It's so pale. This is, I mean, I'm probably spending more time making little tiny lines on the face than I really need to, considering what my intention is here. But I'm still kind of trying to see, even with very, very tiny strokes and things, that what he's doing, what he's thinking. Is our other collage now considered done? If I'm going to be really honest with you, I haven't done anything to it yet. It's just been a really weird and kind of crazy week. I need to go in there and work at completing it, but I haven't. I've moved it to the side so that I could work on other things, and I haven't quite like sat down to really delve into it, and I need to. Like, I'd like to have that not just sitting there forever and never getting completed, as you know, is a way that things can go if I'm not on top of it. It's out of sight, out of mind kind of a mentality that is very almost dangerous and frustrating. Okay. Just kind of in my lips. I did the sketch yesterday, so that would just take up too much time. The amount of time that I, would stream, I get probably almost no painting done if I tried to do the sketch today as well. And I'm also already thinking about what my next piece is going to be. Not study-wise, but just, piece in general. I've already been starting to mull that one over, but finish something maybe once in a while first. Crazy time. It's far from exact, but about at the point that I'm going to kind of let go of looking on the face any further, because I'd like to keep moving with this guy. This is the intention being that it's a relatively quick, study, not a full-on absolute copy and recreate, but just I do. And yeah, I know how to bite off more than I can chew by deciding, let's try a brand new medium today also. Brilliant. Okay. For a very, very tiny little face, that is fine. The necklace that she's wearing, that kind of amazing choker piece, is sort of a lot of the same tones that are happening in her skin. Outside of like the red is a little bit closer to red than just pink, so just a couple little dabs for some of those colors, kind of suggest what's happening there. Yeah, all these amazing gold tones. A crazy good daily ability to forget my work if I don't have it in front of me, or after forgetting, just forever procrastinating. Yeah, it's very much out of sight, out of mind. That's a problem that I suffer from for sure, and it's I would say for me for sure an offshoot of ADHD. Let's get close to the screen just by mixing it up here. Actually not too far. I wanted to try to see. He uses oil paints. I don't wonder if he used oil paints on all of his work. Maybe to make some more color there. That wasn't enough. Like when you see some of the really zoomed in detail shots, and it's a weird thing when you try to look up his work. If you look online, how much of it is detail shots? Like you see the whole painting, or see it all. Give me it all. Just detail shots, but when you do really kind of examine the detail shots, it's almost like he uses really tiny, almost dry brush strokes. I mean, these are large paintings. This one would be 54 by 54 inches or 138 by 138 centimeters. It's pretty large. It's very large. So, yeah, I mean, the way he would be working would obviously be very different than what I'm doing now. There's so few elements of just like a solid color on this piece. That curve isn't quite right there. That green really that little green box draws your attention, and it creates an interesting counterbalance from the face, which is your your focal point to the weight of this, which also kind of draws your attention as being one of the few places where it's just a solid color. I'm not sure. Representing this gold is going to be interesting for sure. Let's see how that'll go. Yeah, the colors that this set of gouache that I'm using, it is from Arteza, which I don't know that I would think of them as being like a very professional level, high end necessarily product. It's interesting because the graphic that I grabbed online to put on the screen to show what I'm looking at versus the image that's in the book that I'm looking at, the book is much more flat than the golds. The lighting that they use to capture it is much more flat, whereas the image on the screen has this like dynamic, you can see the reflections happening in different spots and highlights. So that's kind of an interesting, weird thing that is going to create different looks depending on which one I'm looking at. But I'm just going to kind of work at getting a look for the gold. The broad areas over here have more of like a stippled effect where he laid down. There's not actually a pattern specifically there, but it is a stippled effect from the way that he laid down the gold leaf. Question for everyone. You're given a massive 4x3 meter canvas. Oh my gosh, what do you put on it? A lot of paint. That's what you put on it. I would really have to think about it. That's huge. 4x3 meter. That's 12 by 9 foot, about approximately. Yeah, definitely would need to think about that one. Because that's major. Danny, hello! I'm finally home. When you're doing a live show, most Westerners read from left to right, and we do the same with artwork, or most anything we look at, so photos are the same. Yeah, that's kind of interesting too, isn't it? That even how we perceive and read into art can be different depending on how you read. Yeah, gosh, a giant canvas like that. The biggest canvas I ever worked on was, I think I showed a photo from when I was in high school, where I had this massive, ridiculous canvas that I did with like this pop art. It was a pop art project. We were supposed to do something leading into pop art, and it was just this ridiculously large lipstick tube. And that was probably kind of like a 4 by 6 foot. So what is that, like a one, not quite 1.5 by 2 meter, approximately. It'd be pretty close to that. Right about there. But the variations in tone that are happening where the gold is a lot more to do with lighting than the painting, because of the quality of the material used. Or because of the specific material used, just right off the bat. Not necessarily quality of. That's not necessarily the right word. I'm just filling in this mostly, this area that's mostly just the gold leaf. And it does kind of, the visual, I think the way that he laid the gold leaf on, you can kind of see it in these shapes that aren't as obvious on the picture on the screen, but are a little bit more in the book I'm looking at, where even though it's a mostly, almost a solid approach to that color, that area, this area, there are these sections where you can see like almost a hint of a square where the texture changes just a little bit in there, and that's probably from how he was laying down the gold leaf. And there's just a little bit of the same approach in the strip over here. And he's like me. His straight lines aren't really straight. They're definitely not actually straight. I kind of wish right now that I had some metallic paint, which I just simply do not have. So when this isn't a completely dry application, this gouache, this acrylic gouache, I do add a little bit of water to it. It just lifts itself as I'm working, so I can definitely see where I need to, if I want to add a second layer or something, let that dry. Darker start. Dark gold almost, but even though it's actually much lighter. There, just get some variation. Top corner here definitely does look a little darker. Yeah, 13 feet by 9 feet is a huge. A T-Rex, yes. I love the idea. Dying dinosaurs, especially since we're kind of talking about Jurassic World earlier. Very fitting. Yeah, I mean, it would. That's a straight up mural size, for sure. I'm kind of talking myself through thinking that one. Yeah, that one. I mean, for me, whatever I'm going to paint always comes down to the purpose of what I want something to say. Like, what do I want to talk about? What's my topic? If it's just like for fun, kind of a thing, possibly. If it's just like what the heck ever, make it more decorative, go a little Klimt on it. Gosh. On the spot, I'm really having a hard time thinking of what I would do. Probably just maybe some fun figures. Some interesting figures that I could play around with. Just really lean into like chaos. At that size, that will handle a lot in terms of like working with something that's a bit chaotic. It can bear a lot of that that element without getting completely lost. Probably be pretty hard to do a lot of collage on that one. The way you're capturing the golden light on the left with the flat gouache is stunning. Well, thank you. It's a little, it seems to be just kind of creating a lot of layers at this point. I'm just working back into it. Oh, Mary Beth, just stopped by for a few minutes. Aaron's in Tai Chi today. We'll catch her play. Good morning, Mary Beth. Sounds like a good day to do some Tai Chi. Beautiful, not exactly beautiful weather, but take what we can get. It is hot around here. Hot, hot, hot. I need a little bit more. I have just gone through yellow. Definitely going to need to, considering the piece that I'm doing here. I'm going to do some of that yellow. And what was the one that I dropped on the floor? Oh. They call this bumblebee yellow. So yeah, the names of these colors, like I can kind of look at them and tell you what I'd equate it to in a normal brand. Tomato red, like. So I don't really know what my expectation would be for these colors in terms of being like, they're likely more like student grade quality, I would guess, most likely. It's already hot in Rockford. Oh, yeah, you're not that far away from where I am. We did I hopefully got some rain yesterday because we had some crazy storms in the morning. Well, I think they thought they were going to be crazier than they really ended up being, but we did get a good amount of rain with it at least. Starting out with that darker tone gave a nice effect to the gold, but it's, I think the dark with a little maybe too much, but we'll keep going with stuff and see how it is. We get into this area, and it's like checker marks of different tones. This part over here, slightly darker, and it has a lot of swirls in it. I love the music you're playing in the background. Oh, thank you. I put together a list of songs. I use epidemic music for my songs. Let's see if I can see what song it is right now. Can I? It's not letting me actually see it at the moment, but I put together a list of songs. It's like, and I actually can't hear the music while it's playing here, because if I could hear it, it would echo, and it would just be like chaos and horribleness. So it's songs that I found that were kind of a little bit either like almost classical or kind of a lo-fi approach. As far as the specific song that's playing right this moment, I'm not sure what it is, but I think I have about 30 songs in that list, and I can certainly publish that out so you can see who the different artists and things are. Yeah, right now it's a little just hard to tell at the moment for the way that this all works. But I think I am going to try another setup too, using something that maybe I don't have to host on my computer to play it from. Yeah, I'll definitely get you the list of music. Let me write down so I remember. Music tracks. Yes, absolutely, because there is some really nice like to work to type stuff, and I am going to try a couple different things going forward for music too, but right now I've been doing all these different things to try to like make things function in a way that I kind of wanted them to, between trying to get my sound correct with my mic, adjusting white balance on the camera. At some point I must have done something to change it and I didn't realize it. I finally got in there and corrected that. There's always something. See how long we last outside. Oh yeah, good luck, and enjoy Tai Chi. It'll probably be a really good day for that, especially if you have a little air conditioning. Garden is surviving, struggling, thinking about a cover, yeah. But light shade in the afternoon, big question. No rain in Texas. Probably got an automatic water. Yeah, that's, I understand Texas is, but you guys have been getting really a brunt of the nasty hotness. So I hope your air conditioner is working well and you guys are surviving it comfortably enough. Had some real runs of crazy hot weather. I think I saw that this morning on BBC, they were saying that July globally was the hottest month ever recorded. And even beyond when we started recording weather, they think that there's evidence to say that it might just be the hottest for even much longer past than that. So not fun. Ooh, sorry. Love what you're doing. Oh, thank you. Surviving fine here. Not looking forward to our coming summer. I think I'm gonna die. Yeah, you guys get it pretty hot in Australia, don't you? At least the humidity has been better. Good. I'd rather have dry heat than humid heat. That's very true. I agree with you there, 100%. Okay, I think I've gotten some of the easier parts done at this point. But there's plenty more to do. I can work at laying down a little bit of color. I'm going to lay down the lighter tones of gold in these areas that have a lot more going on. It's okay because I'm going to go back in and we're going to have a lot happening in there. Still kind of want to be able to see my sketches, but I want something to work off of. Just a very basic, just a few of the components drawn in just to help me know where I am with the design elements and bigger shapes and things. Agree with others, looks stunning so far. Thank you. We have 104 Fahrenheit weeks here. Yes, that's just horribly disgusting. Have for about 10 years now. Just getting worse and worse. And our brush fires are just like yours and getting close to metropolitan areas each year. Yeah, was it 1 or 2 years ago? I have a terrible time remembering time passing, but yeah, I remember when they were covering the horrible fires there on the news, and the tragic loss of wildlife and everything that came along with that. It's just kind of shocking. I don't know if it might be wise of me to just kind of go in with anywhere that's gold and lay down a little bit of something to work off of. Give myself kind of a base texture or layer. Let's give that a try. Hopefully I don't regret it. Like I said, I'm kind of new to this medium, so we're just experimenting and seeing what happens. So let's just go for it. Learning about graphics. Oh yeah, cartooning. And yeah, let's hear. I loved hearing what you guys are doing and working on. I'm just going to be doing this for a second, so go. Let me know. Just do it. Do the Klimt, yeah. I'm trying. Yeah. What's everybody working on right now? Like, what's your projects overall? What are you doing, like, today in your spaces, in your studios? Let's start. Base layer it is. We're doing it. And I have no idea how it's going to be to lay in the colors on top of this. Hopefully once it's dry, it'll be just fine. Find out. That's what we are doing today. I did for half a second think about doing this in oil, and I was like, you know what, this is just... If I were more confident with oil, if I were better with oil, that might have been the way to go and kind of give it that bit of a la prima sergeant type of an approach, but I do not have currently the skills to do that. So here we are, trying some things. Today I did a portrait sketch with fine liner and markers. I've been practicing my architecture style sketching to learn backgrounds, and this week I sketched my first ever thumbnails for my comic. Oh my gosh, that is exciting. Awesome. I love to hear it. Are you doing, and with the architectural stuff, so you're doing like some perspective, I imagine, with that? Some perspective work? Taken between art school and high school several perspective classes, but it's definitely not my cup of tea. I mean, you see how much I do like backgrounds or anything. It's never really been my favorite, but it is fascinating and amazing to see when people do it and do it well. It's always super cool. What is happening? I'm getting some kind of weird error message here. Are you guys seeing everything okay still? Such fewer experiences buffering. Are you guys getting buffering? I don't know why it says it's not receiving enough video. Oh, good there? Okay, I hope it stays that way. Let me know if something gets weird. I'll see what I can do. Okay, architecture stuff is me practicing perspective. Line style, sketching right in without pencil, just going right in with ink. Oh, that is very brave. Good for you. That's awesome. So seeing and hearing everything, fantastic. I'm glad. Thank you for letting me know. I just see this like error thing pop up out of the corner of my eye, and it's like, oh no, everything's so weird. But looks like we're still here. Just a little bit more gold sections to go. Actually have some not gold, just a few squares of not gold. Maybe I'll do that next while these gold areas are having an opportunity to dry a little bit. Go starting the buffering, excellent. I did get a little glitch for a second, that was it, okay. Hopefully that was just some weird momentary thing then. And Danny, I'm a photographer and I'm working on my photos for the state fair right now. I doodle, that's about it, but photography and art go hand in hand. Yeah, absolutely. Where's the Watts? Yeah, he's in nap mode at the moment. He is out in the living room, really out when I came in here. So he'll probably likely come in here the closer we get to 12 o'clock, because that's his lunchtime, and he's not going to let me forget that. Yeah, and Danny's photographs are wonderful. She's really has a great eye. Move some of these lines a little bit, where the separations. There's definitely some there, but it's not super obvious. Just kind of go back in there with a little bit of paint and kind of soften those areas a little bit for a moment. Seeing a lot of canvas in some spots still, so just a little bit to go back in and fill in, but about got the basics here. Yeah, photography skills are super translatable when it comes to composition. Yeah, lighting, value, all of the things, absolutely. I love watching Lynell streams because they are quite relaxing, and I love her artworks. I have 2 work pieces. Oh, thank you, Danny. They're I always like to watch other people work as well. It's less relaxing for me, but it is a little bit when I'm doing them. It still is, though. It really, I mean, painting is like my way. That's the only way I know to relax and chill out in a way that I don't feel, that I feel good about it, I guess. Get some orange tone in some of this gold too. It's just getting a little flat over here. Samantha, mostly dinosaurs. My alter ego is Professor Thesaurus, a 65 million year old professor of pre-Socratic philosophy. I was going to do my philosophy dissertation as a graphic novel, but I'm a dropout. Oh, but I absolutely love that. That's amazing. Love that. Where can I see it, please and thank you, right? Absolutely. When you have something to, when you got it, share it for sure. I think everybody here would love to see that. Those are coming together. Thank you. I hope so. It's just painting gold when you don't actually have gold is, I have found, just a matter of getting a lot of layers. There's a lot of texture involved and like kind of trying to capture the way that the light changes on it. Variations between oranges and yellows and kind of browns. It's I get a lot of the color from mixing lighter yellows and oranges with black, like a small amount of black, and going back in and doing the same thing but with less black and more white in some areas. Tiny bits of blue here and there maybe. Jim, hello, good morning. Good to see you here. Making a mess this morning. Glitching a bit again. Let's see. Look at my stream health here. Stream health. Error. I don't know. It must be. It's got to be an internet thing. I know. Okay. Yesterday, with the storms that we had, we were occasionally losing. Power flickered out for a few minutes, and our internet was going in and out a couple times. So it could be related to that having happened. I hope that we stay with you. Yeah, we're good. Hopefully I don't completely lose it. Yesterday we lost it a few times, but there's something about the way that the wires are around here that every now and again, we'll just lose internet for a chunk of time, or power for chunks of time. It's always in the summer, and it's always after there's been storms. That's like the only time it happens. Almost happy with where we are. But that's the only thing I can think of, because normally I've got really great internet here. But when there's just been a storm, that can throw things off. I find gold bizarro because it's got a green tinge, and I never knew until I started trying to get it without with a metallic backing. Oh, Stephanie, hello. Glad to see you here. Hello, hello. I am using acrylic gouache, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I decided to do a study, and not only am I doing what is probably semi-difficult study, at least for myself, but yeah, hey, let's use a new medium today. Why not? But I find it not too difficult to work with thus far, simply because I'm kind of using it the same way that I would paint with acrylic paint. And I have a lot of experience with acrylic paint from over the years, having been primarily in illustration in the past. That was a quicker medium to work with. So between working with acrylic a lot and watercolor a lot, this doesn't feel too strange to me. And I'm excited to experiment more with it, because I like the idea of it being able to do more opaque matte finishes, and I really love the look of some of that. I don't know how much of that I'm going to achieve here, how much of that look, but it is definitely more matte. I'm not seeing a ton of shine, so that's kind of okay. So I'm gonna spend a little bit of time working on some of these random other sections. Well, while I let that dry, but it does dry quite fast. It dries as fast as acrylic paint does, and I'm doing kind of lighter approaches. And I think one of the strengths with, as I understand it, because I don't know what I'm doing, with acrylic gouache has to do with is often like a more heavier approach, like to paint very opaquely. And I'm kind of doing these washy sections right now, so I don't even know if I'm getting an opportunity to experience the best of it, but just getting in there and trying things, because why not? never not a good day to just run in like a ball and chime shop and see what I can find. I kind of want to do another pass over this green because this is much more like pastel looking. And it seems to lend itself in the sense that also, besides the gold being very reflective and interesting, the rest of the parts of it, and maybe it's just the photo that I have in front of my face, but there is like this flatness in it. It doesn't have that like reflective. The paint itself doesn't seem to have as much of a reflective quality. So, I'm starting to get a skin on my paints that I put out earlier. So it's going to be part of the thing. We are just an hour and 16 into working today. So, not too bad. Not too bad, because my acrylic paints will do the same thing. It takes about an hour, hour and a half before it's just like, it's happening. Why is everything gross? Trying to have a little bit of my my palette visible on the side here, because I always also like to see how people. I like to see how people what they're doing with mixing their colors and stuff. And my palettes are always a hot mess. I guess you can't see it in its entirety. So it's a little bit more, but it's a mess and. Whatever gets the job done, if it works. If it works, it works. Okay, where are we? Do those blue gray squares. And it's interesting, like the places where it's solid color, like this green, and these squares. I'm pointing at my thing like you can see it. Okay, so these squares, this green, even though there's like a flat color approach to it, they're very textural nonetheless. And it looks almost as if you were painting over, like if you were painting on concrete or something. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, let's go now. I was told the way of Zen was eating a whole pizza. Was I lied to you? Yes. I appreciate that. Practicing that Zen like for 30 years now. Seeing mix is super helpful. Good, good. Internalizing all of that can be a very fulfilling Zen practice. Getting deep this morning. I appreciate that. I like it. Speaking of Zen, I'm going to refill my coffee with my backup here. I'm really going to try to not spill it on myself because this is often what happens, but yeah, we need to warm up. I always bring backup to my morning streams. Ooh, no spills. Only thing I've dropped so far today is one tube of paint and it was closed. So, doing good. Cross my fingers. Knock on wood. Okay. Let's do these. Let's do these squares. Let's see. Some blue and some black. There's almost a hint of green to them. Although it's interesting because on your screen where you see them, the one is reflected back, like this square looks almost white on the picture that I have on the screen, the reference, as it is completely reflective. That's really interesting. I'm kind of following more the picture that I have in the book in front of me. But I could go either way with it. Leftover pizza, the breakfast of champions. Keep needing to make some green smoothies for breakfast, and I keep not getting it done. And it's one of those things, another out of sight, out of mind, like all the ingredients are in the fridge. And they're probably going to go almost bad by the time that I get to them and do the thing. I'm very terrible with that, with things ceasing to exist in my ability to perceive them after a while. Sorry, I'll put the mic again. Biggest thing I gotta make sure of right now is that when I bump the mic, because of the way it's set up by me now, that I don't hit the mute button, which is at the very top of the mic, and the mic is like coming out the side right now, so it's just like the mute button, it's right there, and it's really, really sensitive. So if we get through the rest of the stream without me doing that too, and the stream quality stays decent, it looks like we're in excellent condition at the moment, so hopefully we stay there. Good old Comcast. My corners are not as sharp as they are in the painting. Oh. Then I had a green smoothie. I had green smoothie days about 7 years ago, right at my last peak when I was up to 5 a.m. for the gym, and all that. Oh, yeah, I remember having a period of time where I was doing green smoothies every day, and also when I was working not exactly 9 to 5, it was an 8:30 to 5 job, but I was getting up early because I passed by a forest preserve on my way to work, and I'd go to that forest preserve before work and run. Yes, and exactly your perspective on that. Who was this person? What? But as soon as, everything shut down, because when the pandemic shutdown first occurred, that's when I stopped doing it. When I was starting to work at home at that point, even before it happened, like weeks before the shutdown, I started working from home for myself, and they actually even closed the forest preserves. They roped off the entrances. I mean, they couldn't stop people from walking there from somewhere else and just getting on the trails that way, but they roped off the entrances where you could go and park to get to them. So it was all very interesting. These guys are going to need another layer for sure. It's just a little too wet. And I think that I'm probably struggling a little bit with, well, for one, I've gone through a lot of the medium that's on my palette already, a lot of the paint. And so once it gets low, it's drying even faster. So I'm going to put a ton out. But yeah, it's I'm not getting nice thick paint to work with on these right now, but I'm kind of okay with that just because of what specifically I'm doing right now. But yeah, it's pushing it around is a little more difficult as it dries. So it's either kind of dryish going on, or I'm going to get it wet and it's going to be kind of transparent because it's wet. peel my arm's leaning on the palette paper, and I just like have to peel it off carefully because they're damp. I don't think I'm sweaty yet. It's pretty comfortable in my studio thus far this morning. I don't get a lot of air in here directly, but I have this little itty bitty adorable fan that actually works quite well. He's cranking at the moment. Just a decent little fan makes a whole lot of difference. The air moving. An Italian champion for the breakfast. I love that. Sorry, just catching up. I was spacing out with my work for a minute. Nice. Those who beat my cooking would say so. Excellent. But do we want to be those people again? There's a part of me that's like wants to be healthier. And then there's the part of me that, you know, feels like I'm never getting enough done when I am, you know, here anyway, and it's got the time. So, you know, it's a mixed. Volunteer for tribute, as tribute for the next round. Nice. Nothing wrong with being chatty, especially like, well, I know it's not morning for you, but it's still relatively, it's before noon. So yeah, for me, who's still, you know, processing my coffee and trying to like be a functioning human being, it takes me way too long, even though I've been awake for 4 hours. I would be happy to cook for you. Just got my new stove set up. Oh, nice, new stove. I was just excited that we got a new microwave not that long ago, simply because ours had been broken for 11 years and we never replaced it. And it was one that's it's installed in the cabinetry over the stove. So there was just this long, dead, ugly thing sitting there, and because it didn't work and I never looked at it, I forget that it existed. Got very dusty. But I did clean it before people came to replace it, because I try not to be a horrible person with a disgusting home that people come into too much anyway. And, oh man. Yeah, something being right above your stove gets pretty gross. But now that we have a working microwave, I still forget it, because it was so long we didn't have it. It's like, oh yeah, I could heat this up in the microwave. Wow. And having a light over the stove and a vent over the stove, I still forget to do that. It's been, well, I mean, this hasn't been forever long. It's been weeks, though. Definitely weeks. You are happy to cook, I'm not. Sounds perfect. I have had periods in my life where I really enjoyed cooking. I haven't been in one of those for a long time. It's just felt like much more of a chore. My partner is kind of in the mindset of like, you know, we should be healthier, we would be doing better, and you, right? He's right. So we're trying. It's hard. Hence the green smoothie thing. I have all the ingredients for it. I have not gotten it done. The new stove is smart and talks to the fridge. The things that they do with appliances these days is really bizarre, isn't it? Like, we could have gotten a smart microwave. Is it smart enough to put my food in it? For me? I don't think it is. Oh, there I've got an issue with my stream health again. It's just coming and going. I don't know. There's if things get weird, guys. Seems like I don't have a lot of control over it from my end, but hopefully it'll be all right. It's just like it's our ISP. More accurately, it's like the wiring for the ISP, the hard wires that they have outside, which at some point probably ought to be moved underground, but they have not. They've not done that. And every year some crazy thing happens. Last year in the summertime, big semi going down the road right next to my place just completely ran into those like low-hanging wires and pulled them out, knocked down the pole on top of itself and everything. That was a major deal where we were out of power for a while, and then even once they got it back on, like it was a slap stitch to put everything back together, and they still had to come back, turn off the power so that they could replace the lines and the pole and stuff. Every year, wires come down around here. It's crazy. Crazy. It sends you shopping lists, but it makes you pay for it. That sounds like a mistake. Like, send me to the store? How about throwing in a little bit? Yeah, I don't really get that everything is smart, but I don't know that they've really mastered the usefulness of what that means. I have to cover up the fingers that are there, but I'm kind of losing them a little bit at the moment. Okay, I think I've got all the base down. It's going to be starting to look at all these little details and bits now. Figure out how to approach those. I dig that her dress, this part of her dress is all eyeballs. And it's triangles and eyeballs, and I found that really interesting. I really like his piece that's Pallas Athena, and I think that I considered doing that one too. But I kind of liked everything that was happening here and how it all feeds together. I really love his the couple pieces that he has, the Judith ones. But I didn't choose them because I didn't want to have any. Even though paintings I worked on before have, suggestions of boobs, I try to keep it a little not in your face, and it's hard to do those pieces without them being much more obvious, kind of in your face a little bit. So I chose this piece, and then it actually worked out really well because I happened to have a book that had a nice big copy of it to look at. But I don't find his paintings to be like, some people consider some of his paintings to be a bit too much and obscene, but some of his drawings definitely kind of start to cross the line, I think, in terms of being like blatantly almost pornographic. But But the thing about just the human body in and of itself is not seen. Made that square a little too small, but you know what, we're just gonna work with it. I'm not going for a completely photocopy type study. What I'm trying to learn from this is the ways that he incorporated the abstraction and the decorative elements in with the more realistic rendered bits. That's what I found really interesting, and compositionally. His compositions are very curious sometimes. For the pieces that are along this line, this type of work. Because he also has like super traditional stuff too. It's just a bit of everything in there. And then these like landscapes. And the only thing that I struggle with his landscapes is kind of, there's almost a lack of or at least the ones some that I've looked at pretty closely, kind of a lack of a focal point. They're very just decorative paintings, which I guess I'd assume is what he was going for with it. He really loved ornamentation, obviously. Trying to get the right consistency of my paint here to flow a little bit. So just wee bit of water. Funny, I know immediately what that dress looks like because my stepdad did an enormous puzzle version of it, and I helped him. That dress was insane. Oh my gosh, and a puzzle? Yeah, this would be a pretty brutal puzzle. Glad you chose this one. I like the details in it. Sure are a lot. Yeah. Unless they can get Nana's Sarakis. That's just the way it is. I like the eye shapes on the dress. Yeah, it's really interesting. And he used a decent amount of like what do you call it? Symbolism in things. So yeah, it is pretty cool. If you think about it, the green down at the bottom along with the flow of the dress and the red square, draw your eyes to her face, and that the rest of the painting flows to the top right. Yeah, it really is. Like the lines and which not seeing real clear in my painting yet until I start to paint in the details, but yeah, they definitely, like you have this weight. All of this becomes kind of an open element, but this helps to create the weight between where the line goes off on this side and then this piece here. But then the fact that they do just feed up into here, and you have the weight of all these elements up here. The only bright red, the highest contrast, the black against the white with those biggest shapes. Definitely is like a very deliberate control of your line of sight, of where you're looking, of the way your eye travels around the piece, which is really fascinating to me because I don't see as much of that in some of his other pieces where the figures become these like blobs of shapes. This one, he really controls the entire canvas. And I think on some of them, he does this sometimes so clearly, and then sometimes it's like it's not even, didn't even matter. Which, it seems to be like deliberate decisions. I can't say that for certain. He didn't talk about himself as an artist much in his choices and what he did. So there's certainly an element of assuming and guessing based on what you can see. interesting guy. Yeah, 14 kids. Oh, goodness. I will need to get some more paint out, probably before I go too much further with this stuff. But I do want to keep track of time. We are at 1 hour and 40 minutes. So that will have to make a decision about whether or not to put in much more paint here and how much longer it will go. Let's see. It must have taken him such a long time to finish the pieces like this. For as big as they were and the amount of detail that's happening, that had to take in a long time. I know I haven't watched the Klimt episode from Art Explained in 15 Minutes yet either. I have gone through periods where I had just kind of down the rabbit hole, watching that one after another, and then I kind of forget about it for a while, but yeah, I definitely need to watch that one. I really enjoyed the one I watched recently that was about Sargent's, a pair of portraits that he did that were kind of scandalous at the time, and that was super interesting. That was, a lot of their shows are like 15 minutes deep diving into a certain great work of art, but that was like a slightly longer one. It was really good. That program is amazing. I love that. Yeah, in The Kiss, he does like kind of what he has here, in the sense that it's like the most contrast of like a big chunk of the black, the hair of the man, and then pointing at the book again where you guys can see, in The Kiss, where it's sort of this blob of a shape of the people coming together like in this fabric. But the woman's face you see, and it's rendered very much like this. The man is just like his neck's breaking at the angle it's at, with just the black hair. And it's really, it definitely draws your face into that moment of the people. Yeah, this is not, I don't suppose, the most like kind of traditional type of study that you might do, artist study, perhaps. But I really just am so fascinated by the way that he works in his the more abstracted pieces. And I have this like running list in my brain, which is dangerous because I won't it's likely to get lost, of pieces that I would like to do this with, that I want to visit and kind of study them in this way, like really spend this much time looking at them and breaking them down. I really should just like write that list down, because when it comes time to actually do that, then I'm like, oh, what should I do? I'm gonna have to like try to figure out something to do. Yeah, there's a ton of things I want to do. I just don't remember. That's how it goes. He was very much also inspired by Japanese art, which you can definitely see. And I think some of that comes across in the way that he does the ornamentation, but there's some pieces where he just like outright does the types of drawings of the figures and characters and things, and it's very, very clear. He stopped for a while during COVID, but a lot of YouTubers kind of stopped for a while. Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's like the time when everybody's at home, but also stopped. I continued to make videos for a while, but from back in the day, but I was sort of just screwing around and didn't know really what I was doing, and probably some of those old videos are pretty cringe-worthy. But I was kind of having fun and like treating it as an opportunity to just learn video editing. And it didn't really go anywhere because I didn't know what I was doing, and then I eventually ended up just stopping for a long time after that first year. Oh, sorry. Bumped the mic again, but at least I did turn it off this time. Got my pages. My palette is getting quite dry, so I'm going to need to decide pretty soon how much further to go. Well, thinking I would finish this within 2 hours was, I was skeptical that I would. Definitely not. Yeah, my paint is almost entirely too dry to work with outside of my red, which I barely used. I have some pink here. I can put my pink triangles on there. The white that's left there. Very little pink. Outside of her face, it's just a few of the little triangles on this part of her dress, and that's really it, which, you know, having the only really red and pink tones right in here, it's very effective. Yeah, it was, I definitely kind of thrived with the shutdown for a little bit. It gave me an opportunity to really revisit everything that I was doing. So I agree with that. I got a huge list of projects that I keep adding to that I want to do. I stick it all into Notion, allows me further brainstorming space. That's a good idea. Notion is a kind of fantastic app for organizing your thoughts and creating databases and all kinds of things. Calendars, you can create it all in one place, have things linking to each other. It's free, which is another bonus. So I've been trying to use it also. I was just doing like a deep set into it yesterday for like ideas for things to do, like with either videos or social posts and emails and things like that, just things that are interesting that I could talk about as ideas. So yeah, kind of the same. It just spins off into chaos. Tiger King. Oh God. That's true. Tiger King was a huge hit during COVID, and just why? Interesting to see the woman emerging as you paint the background. Yeah, the more that I get, especially like right around her face, she will certainly become clearer too. the things like underpaintings and such are kind of fascinating in that sometimes it looks like just a hot mess, and then all of a sudden something will emerge and make sense out of the chaos. That's something that I enjoy with watching people work creatively, when like they know where they have some idea about where it's going, but when you're watching them, you don't necessarily, and it's just like, where are they going? What are they doing? And then all of a sudden it's like, ah, there it is. I love that moment. I love to look at how other people work and think through their creative process. It's such an individual thing. I'll need to pull this pink back a little bit. We'll see where it is when it dries, because I'm painting it over gray, so it might not be so bright when it dries. I'll get lotion. I have a lot to organize. It's pretty great. I even, like, some people put out templates for things that they've created that work for them in Notion. I've gotten a few from another YouTuber on here. I think I talk about it in one of my videos about kind of behind the scenes businessy stuff in the art studio. I think I have links to them there, but I actually, for just a few bucks, purchased a couple of her templates, because sometimes when I was just starting out, like, building the files was a bit more intimidating, and I didn't know what I was doing, so kind of to have something to start with. And she has videos where she walks through how she uses it too. Kelsey Rodriguez, that's her name. How she uses it for her art business and content creation, so ideation, business goals, all that stuff that you can kind of incorporate in. It's pretty cool. So I've been attempting to keep myself a little bit organized with it also. Keeping me organized is a feat, to say the least. So even if it works a little bit, it's kind of a win when it comes to myself. Wait, on the tube. It's hard to believe that we're almost through July. Isn't that crazy? Whoa. Too much water. What if you make the overhead video into a time lapse? Would you take the live stream recording and crop it? Or are you recording the overhead camera on its own memory? I can record it. I haven't been, just because these are usually, a couple hours long, and a video of that size takes up a lot of space on my hard drive. So I haven't been recording a lot of them, but I can get them from YouTube, certainly. And I could do that. I could crop it and make just a straight, sorry, Just a straight time-lapse video out of it. It's like I'd have to go back to the video on YouTube, download it back to myself, and then yeah, throw it in my editor. I use Premiere because I have the Adobe suite, so I use Premiere for my video editing. And doing time lapses isn't too bad. Cropping out everything and like having it as good size would probably be the most difficult thing. Or maybe I just cover myself with some other graphic would be the easiest way to make that work. I've tried adjusting the light. Because I knew if I'm working this small, if my light was on that side, it would be casting a shadow onto the painting. So I switched my light to be on the other side of me. And then I put up a big white screen behind everything to try to get some reflected light too. This is all doing this stuff until until I build that LED light. And I finally ordered the LEDs. I just have to figure out the channels. As the places that I found that the channels to tier them to are relatively cheap, but then you look at, oh, I just want to ship these 2 pieces that are $8 a piece, and they're like $140 for shipping because it has to go freight. Nope. Defeats the entire purpose of everything. Yes. All right, where are we? Well, I'm gonna email you screenshots of my setup for brain dumping and ideas so you can see how I do. Oh, awesome. I use sometimes Notion on my iPad, and I get frustrated sometimes getting it to do what I want. I don't know if anybody else experiences that or if I just have like fat fingers. That's a possibility. Did you do the drawing freehand or did you trace it onto the canvas? In this case, I did do it freehand because I kind of wanted to I really wanted to observe it while I was doing it. And as such, it is probably not, perfect, but that's okay because I'm not going for a perfect copy. I'm really just trying to go for what can I glean from this. So that was another way of me like really trying to absorb how things are on there, to just really try to freehand it and learn what I could from also doing that. I'm very old school when organizing. I do a weekly goal list, then I do a daily to-do list the night before in a notebook journal. I've been using the cheap composition notebooks. That's really good. I do a weekly sheet. I talked about this in a video too, I think. There's a really long lag on this video, and that must be because of the quality of the feed, so sorry about that. Like little day of the week columns. I do use that when I remember to, and then hopefully remember to go back and look at it. And oftentimes things get like scratched off and pushed to the next day. So yeah, it's whatever works for anybody. My problem with Notion is I don't go into it every day. I don't think to go into it every day, and that's something I would have to create the habit of doing. Watching you work is hypnotic in the best possible way. Oh, thank you. It's fun to do this sort of thing. And it's just an interesting experience to be like, okay, I'm going to sit here for 2 hours and just paint. And that's what I'm doing. And it really forces me to pay attention a little bit and learn what I can learn. This will make a good one for YouTube Shorts. Yeah, it might. See, it's going to take me probably another hour and a half, 2 hours to finish it for my next stream. We'll see how far. It'll be really from, 4 hours to fit it into a minute. Speed thing. Notion for me on touchscreens can get finicky sometimes. Yeah, I have had that problem. I also need an actual physical to-do list. I don't use Notion for today. I need to be able to strike it off with a pen. That makes a big difference to me. I like being able to cross things off a list. I am a list maker. My only problem is I end up with lists all over the place, and I then don't go back and look at them when I need to. Yes, the light dome, I am going to do that darn thing. I'm gonna do it. Because when I set up my lighting for here, it's great for working, it's great for painting, and especially if I'm working at the easel, I have really great lighting set up over there. But I don't know if I anticipated how often I would be working here at this spot. So I have this one, as you can see behind me, like studio light. It's not an expensive one. I have that guy, and otherwise it's like there's some daylight for the morning one, but not as much for my evening stream. So yeah, better lighting right over here, and the dome seems like a really great solution. And I do have a little table lamp right next to me here, but it's not like a great working light, and I need to change the bulb on that. It's still like a really warm light bulb, which isn't great. But yeah, scratching off to-do list, that's a really satisfying thing that helps a lot. Okay, I think that given the work, my paints are almost entirely dried up at this point. And we're already at the 2-hour mark. I'll probably basically call it a stream. I'm surprised Watson's never yelled at me. I guess my partner must have fed him. He hasn't shown his face in here at all. Either that or he's been having a really good nap this morning. Can you get those cable bendy things somewhere closer to you so you don't have to buff out for postage? Yeah, I've started looking at that. I tried to do a little Google search to see if there's any place near me, and then I got distracted. And that was just yesterday, so it's just going to be a matter of trying to find if there's a supplier near here. Because the other ones that I found are like, there's one in Minnesota, there's one in somewhere on the East Coast. And yeah, Minnesota is a day's drive away, but still 8-hour drive to just go pick up some $16 worth of supplies and bring them back in. Probably not. Yeah. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna figure it out. It's gonna happen one of these days. But anyway, yeah, I think, yes, we are at the 2-hour point. My paint is virtually completely dried on my palette, which almost works out perfectly to just say we're in a good place to stop today and then pick it up. I can eke out enough paint to just... I have problems. You all know that. You watch me. Yeah, this is a great place to pause it. I just barely started getting into any of the kind of like patterns and textures and things happening all over her, and that's going to be an interesting element to really dive into and see what to pull from that, what to do, how to create it, what I can glean from it in terms of learning, what I can apply in my own work and the way that I work. So I'm kind of excited about getting into there, but yes, that'll be Monday evening, 7 p.m. Central U.S. time. So hopefully you guys can hop back on with me then. That would be, and we'll get this guy done. Happen when I get to it. Yes, my life as well. 200% will happen when it happens. So yeah, have a great Friday. Tomorrow is Friday already, and weekend. Hopefully it's weather's pleasant enough to where you are so you can enjoy and have some creative time and live your best lives until I see you next time. All the creative energy to you guys. Thanks for joining me, and have a good day.